Welcome to Adeptus On-Air, the show where we examine how individuals and companies make decisions that drive their business and personal success. Each week, we connect with notable professionals who pull back the curtain on the industries that Adeptus has been on the cutting edge of for the last 30 years, including music, sports, and entertainment, as well as new emerging markets.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Adeptus On-Air. I am, again, your host, Mike Hoffman, and today I am joined by the multi-talented musician, Adam Holland. Adam, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mike. Nice to be here.
I appreciate you coming on. So, guitarist, songwriter, producer, bunch of major record deals, publishing deals, MTV videos, national tours, network television spots, magazines, songs and movies. It's been a pretty fun time for you.
It has been it's been very fun, and I always start by saying how grateful I am that I still get to do what I do and all the things I've done. So I always, gratitude is the first word out of my mouth every day. So I'm a lucky guy, grateful guy, worked hard, and I'm just happy to be in the game still.
It's always nice to do something that you're so passionate about. So many people work hard for a long time and just don't feel that passion that you can clearly hear in your voice.
No, that is true, and I can't say it better than that. I get to do what I love to do with people who I like to. It's what can I tell you? Yeah.
So let's talk about how you got there. So I'm gonna guess, like with a lot of musicians, you kind of just grew up with a love of music and have kind of been doing it for most of your life.
Pretty much. I grew up, so again, my high school years, late 70s, early 80s. So all that, the classic rock, which is today, Led Zeppelin, Steve Miller, Fleetwood Mac, Boston, Foreigner, the spectrum that my older sister would play in the house and like in the mornings really loud, which was always a great way to wake everybody up. And it was cool. It was cool though. Looking back, it was great. And then of course, there was a guitar in the house. I think she played guitar, but I gravitated towards it and it felt natural. And I just loved it. I played hockey as well. I was like hockey and music with my sort of high school things. And then as the kids in hockey got bigger and bigger and bigger, I was like, holy shit. This is I was like, damn, I really like hockey, but I'm like, and also you get to that 16 to 18-year-old age bracket where you can check. I'm like, these guys are like monsters.
Yeah. It's a lot safer sitting in home playing the guitar.
I was like, you know what? I was just like scared. I was scared to go out on the ice. So either way, That's when music really sort of like that 16 really became like, my passion. And then, you gravitate towards other musicians in high school and you meet older kids, younger kids, and you just start to do it. And then that's how, and growing up on Long Island, there was a great music scene. There was tons of clubs, places to play. And God bless all these club owners who would let us young underage kids play in these clubs that we weren't supposed to even be in. So I don't know. So it all sort of worked out, and then you make a decision. Are you gonna try and do this professionally? That road. I did go to college. I wasn't like I'm not going to get a college education, but I also stayed home for college so I could do both. I kind of did a simultaneous.
Right.
So
you just took it where I was going to go with it. A lot of people are very active in their music programs at school, or they do play in a band when they're in school, but that's just their hobby, is kind of like sports or anything like that. And then it kind of dies down, or maybe it's still part of their lives a little bit, but not to the extent. But for you, what was the impetus for saying, okay, you know what? I really want to pursue this, because it's probably riskier than getting a college degree, which you did, and then having something a little more certain. Right.
Well, there's no question that is a safe route. And, but I think when you're a musician, if it's something it's hard to sort of push it away. So my feeling was, and maybe I don't know if this is wise or not, but I'm like, someone has to make records. Someone has to be a professional athlete. It's not just aliens that come down from another planet. Somebody's doing it. I'm like, so record labels need records to sell. I'm like, why can't, let me give it a shot. I'm like, what if it doesn't? I'd rather have tried than not.
Yeah.
Then so I went for it. But like I said, went to college. I wasn't like just going to be, I wasn't looking to play like, I wanted to get a record. I wanted to make records and write music. I wasn't looking to just be play music in a cover band in my life. I was going to try and be an original artist. And by going to college, locally. I went to NYU, went to CW Post.
Mhm.
I was able to get internships at the record companies. And that was really, I know it sounds crazy, one of the bigger reasons I'm like, for going to college. I'm like, this gets me in the door.
Yeah.
And that was the education I was really looking for. But I got a great education. I got both. So I met people, and the band was still, chiming away in the background.
Mhm.
And the other guys were doing the same thing. Everyone worked or went to college. We all sort of had the collective mindset. And God bless us all. When everyone got their first job at whatever 20 something, we got our first record deal. And
So you got your record deal, which is awesome. Now, what is your main passion with that? At that point in your career, was it playing the music? Was it writing the music? Was it writing the lyrics? Like, what was your?
That's a good question. It was a little bit of everything. We all were involved in it. The band. We were never like a party band, so we weren't like a bunch of like drunk or drug guys. So we always were involved in the decisions.
Mhm.
Like we had great managers, don't get me wrong, but we also, before we had managers, knew like the look of the band. We produced the demos, we wrote the songs. I was obviously I did a little bit of everything, a little bit of lyrics, but definitely it was 80s guitar driven music. So I was coming up with those guitar riffs. And
Mhm.
Craig, the keyboard player, he was really a fantastic writer. And when I met him early on, I think we were 18, 19. When I met him, we started really writing. And that's when the band Valentine really blossomed. And we had Hugo, also a phenomenal songwriter and singer. So that it just started to happen. You sort of pick up guys along the way. And when you hopefully get the right combination,
Yeah.
it worked. And again, looking back, it was it's oddly organic how it happened. You just meet the right people and you hope that you find the right people. And, you got to be a little bit nuts and a little bit, youthful ignorance is helpful in those.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So we
No
had that,
doubt.
like, what the F, let's just go for it. And like, let's just go for it. So we did it. And so we went to
So
California for a
Valentine
minute.
kind of takes off in the '80s. Now you're touring all around the country.
Well, here's the thing. Valentine came out in the 80s, but we didn't get released. We had some record label drama. The
Mhm.
producer had a back problem. So we got delayed till the end of the 80s, really 1990. And by the time we came out, the taste for 80s music was starting to
Right.
turn the tide. And I know a lot of people say that when the 90s came, that it just turned the flavor of radio and what people wanted to hear, including record companies. So the passion behind it started to fade.
Mhm.
So we did get a little bit of touring. We had a video, a lot of magazine, a lot of press, and we did the best with what we could at the time. We tried to, just salvage what we could. Again, we changed labels. There was a lot of like internal drama, not internal, but internal
Right.
business drama.
Yeah.
So the good thing was we were in the record industry. We had a deal. We had managers. We had people who knew us,
Mhm.
and we had, thank God, at least we gained some respect inside the industry as writers, musicians, and performers. And in a blessing and a curse, we weren't huge enough that we couldn't still sort of evolve into it. Like we evolved into the band called Open Skies, which was a
Right.
90s type of band, but
Mhm.
not like grunge 90s, just different little, a little more, not 80s. I don't know how to say it, different. And
Yeah. Different
so
sound.
right. So the good thing was we were inside the industry. Producers, label people knew who we were, and they were willing to give us another shot based on Hugo's voice,
Mhm.
our songwriting ability. So in some way, it earned us the chance to continue, which I guess that's good enough at that point.
Yeah. So that's perfect. So now you're in the '90s with Open Skies,
Right.
and that one I assume took off a little more than
It did.
Valentine just
It did a
because of the
little.
timing.
Yeah, a little bit more, and we had a good label behind us. We did some touring. It wasn't a time where they didn't even care about a video. They're like, who cares? Literally, it's a waste of
Yeah.
money. So, but we did some good radio like that. Each band had a little different, category of success. So we had better radio play with Open Skies, better touring, and it was a good run. We were so talk about grateful. We were like, holy shit, we get to do this again. And that was a great period for us because we were allowed to explore and it was almost like try things. It was like a great producer, Richie Zito and Rob Jacobs came in. They said, listen, try everything you ever didn't do, like think a little differently and just be free to explore. And so we really love that record. We're proud of it. It's not as heavy as the first record, a Valentine record, but we were, I guess they're kind of like, how does Lenny Kravitz rock? How does Tom Petty rock? How do these guys who rock, but not in like an 80s metal way? So that was like the mindset. And that was kind of a cool path to go down. And we wrote with some other people, which for the first time, which was also an eye-opening experience. So it was really, I really enjoyed that period of my career and our career.
So what do you think? I'm going to get off topic a little bit, but it's kind of what we're talking about. And I know exactly what you're talking about. And we said the 80s music kind of changed when we got into the 90s.
Right.
And so what do you think drives that? I mean, is it the radio industry in terms of what they're playing? I mean, because obviously if you go, decade to decade, maybe not so much in certain times, but when you think about what the 70s was, disco,
right.
Then you go in the 80s, which was, very different. And in the 90s, you had 3 very drastic music styles.
Correct.
Like, what drives that in your opinion?
I don't think the industry drives it. Like, listen, these bands, they came out, I think what happens is a decade of a certain sound, whether it's grunge, whether it's like the grunge flannel, whether it's the 80s, like pop, hairspray type of thing, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
It gets saturated, and then people like rebel against it. The next generation's like, fuck that. I want, rebellion is what drives rock and roll. And so like that the 90s also, I like the 90s. If you looking back now with some, the 90s lyrics were a lot more like intellectual than like the 80s were writing about girls and like sort of silly stuff.
Yeah.
And there was some good, don't get me, I'm not saying all of it. I'm saying that was the majority of like the sort of hair metal world love songs where these other songs came out a little more, not angry, but just a little more, they were like bands like Live, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, different lyric, which was like, wow, that's cool. And those bands were damn heavy and rocking, but like in a different way. So I think that the youthful generation is what changes it. Then the record companies, there are some wise record company guys who have a vision. They see that they see ahead, and that the guys who see ahead. I remember we were at RCA and Dave Matthews just got signed. I'm like, I heard like the song. I'm like, I didn't even understand what it was. And then all of a sudden he still is. And then so someone with a different mindset saw something happening. And like, I remember we were at Columbia and they were like, Alice in Chains is coming. I'm like, wow, what the hell is that? So, there are people in the industry who see, I guess they're out there in the world and seeing what's going on. They can sense the movement. So back to Valentine, just to conclude, tying it back, our timing wasn't great,
right?
But it was good enough.
Well, they say a lot of it, when you think about some of these people who break out, there's a lot. I'm not saying they're not talented, but there is usually some kind of aspect of perfect timing or the perfect storm.
Correct, and then just like, listen, the kids who grew up in that era, that's what they were doing. So that when the time came, that's what they were doing.
Yeah,
I don't know how to explain it. I mean, the 80s was influenced by that 70s like hard rock, like Boston, like all that hard rock stuff. Van Halen, that late 70s Foghat, Journey, Foreigner, all that like great guitar anthemic stuff is what formed the 80s stuff. And then it got really saturated and like, again, Pretty Boy and hair and like kind of cheesy lyrics, and every video had girls and sort of silly strippers and stuff. So the 90s, like they were like, that's childish. Let's get down to, it's still the same guitar driven music, but with a little more integrity, less frills, and a little more grit, and a little, I think the lyrics of the 90s are more intelligent than the 80s.
I also think the expectations of what people expect in a song have changed too, because again, I was born early 70s, so 80s was my teen years.
Right.
And MTV at that point was music television. It was video after video, and new videos coming out. Now MTV is TV shows.
I'm not even sure what it is. The VMAs were the other day. I'm like, what? Are their videos even out anymore? So
that's exactly you're exactly saying what I was going with. Is now I don't remember last time a song came out and you're like, oh, I want to see the video. Even if there is a video for it, who knows?
Well, you'd watch it on YouTube. I just go to YouTube and watch it.
Right. But correct, but it wasn't. I felt like back then, at least my recollection, it was driven by the videos coming out, not the songs coming out.
It was a great era. I mean, the MTV era of the '80s was a great. I mean, it was a great time. As a kid, I grew up not far off from that, but it was just a great time. You waited for the video, and even Valentine, we just had a video. Our video only got played on a show called Headbangers Ball, but even that little bit of play, it got into some rotation. I mean, that was like you went to play a club somewhere, or you went. People knew who you were. They knew the song.
Yeah,
it was cool.
It's definitely a different time with music, and I think now also because of all the different platforms, whether it's through social media or whatever, there's so many ways to hear music. So even if someone's not mainstream, you could be a fan of someone just because they play on TikTok.
What it blows my mind in this era right now is that I love the fact that the big '90s, all the big bands that like Pearl Jam, the Killers. Like I love the Killers, by the way, too. But that's like 2000s. Like Paramore, also 2000s. I love and Fall Out Boy. I love those three bands. I love like Pearl Jam. I love Live. I love like Candlebox. There's some great '90s music. I'm leaving out a bunch too. But the point is, like Linkin Park is still like. I mean, they just had a huge. So like Def Leppard is still going. Like it's like the cream. They say the cream rises to the top. The guys who just stayed in it, like Pearl Jam, became like the new Springsteen. Like they're like it's amazing, and it's just so cool. I love to see that. It gives me inspiration. So it also, I also love the fact that I'll hear of an artist I've never heard of him before in my life, and I go, you do a little research. They have millions of followers, and they're playing 2 nights like in an arena. You're like, I don't even know who that is. I'm like, holy shit. So I go then explore who that is. I'm like, whoa, what? I gotta pay attention to what, just to curious, even if I like it or not. Just I'm curious to what it is. So that's what's cool in today's market. Like, I mean, you never heard of a name, and then you're like, holy shit, they have 43 million monthly subscribers on Spotify, and some song has 1 billion streams, and I'm never even heard it until today. So
and it's funny when you watch like the VMAs or any of these award shows. There's always musicians who are winning awards that I've never heard of, and they're winning or nominated. I'm like, who is that?
Right. Well, I have kids, and I'm like, they keep me aware of what's happening. I'm like, well, otherwise you wouldn't know clue. I'm still stuck I'm stuck in the '70s, still listening to.
Right. Well, I have my I have my I have my playlist. Exactly. If I'm going out for a run or something, and my songs are a lot of my songs are 30, 40 years old.
Yes, that's right. I mean '90s too. Smashing Pumpkins. That's one band, great band, and it's still huge. Green Day. Those I love those. I like but you know what? They're great songs. Whatever era or decade they came out in, all those bands have good songs, and they've been either up tempo or a ballad that touches somebody. Disarmed, whether it came out in 1970 or whatever '90s, is like, holy crap, that's like an emotional song.
Right.
Same way I was listening to Cinderella. We played a show with the guy Tom Kiefer. Went back and listened to some Cinderella. I'm like, you know what? Those are that second album. That's some great songs, man. So good songs will stand up through the generations. That's my feeling.
Yeah. So after Open Skies, you became a staff writer. Well, I know I'm skipping some time period.
It's okay. Well, after in the late '90s, we all like imploded. We like just took a head. Took 5 minutes to like scratch our heads, like what the hell just happened. So yes, my next thing I did musically was I ended up becoming a staff writer for a great publisher in Nashville, Roger Murrah, and I didn't live there, but I commuted quite a bit. And that was another great chapter. A lot of guys, Nashville was becoming like modern country at the time. Like Keith Urban, Rascal Flatts.
Sure.
Martina McBride, type of thing. Really cool stuff. Faith Hill. And a family friend who was a successful writer, this woman named Robin Lerner. I never wrote with her, but she was like our families were friends. She's like that. They're looking for like sort of non-traditional country writers. You should just give it a shot. So they didn't want in Nashville your typical country guy. They had plenty of, incredible, mega talented country writers. So they're like, can you bring your sort of rock? Can we combine what you do with some country guys? So there was a sort of a allowance for non-country guys to come down to Nashville. So it was great. I didn't have anything cut. I had a lot of things on hold. I had a lot of work with. Oh my God, the A-list of A-list people. talk about it was a great creative period.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed it. That was about 5-6 years. I did that.
So how does that work when you're a staff writer? So are they coming to you and saying, someone wants you to collaborate with you specifically, or like come up with
Combination.
ideas for this person? Like, what's the process there?
I wrote a lot with a woman named Amber White, who had a record deal on. Her husband was a writer at Murr, so we wrote a lot of songs for her. She had a record coming out in Hollywood, and I wrote with a woman named Shannon Brown, who also had a record coming out. So they're like, we're looking for. They always wanted up tempo. They liked my up tempo stuff. They're like, we got the best ballads in the world.
Yeah.
Give us some up tempo rock songs. So we try to write up tempo songs, but also I'd write with other writers to see, because you just never know what. You have to write 10 songs to get one that might, and you never know how it finds its way to the same thing. Like, you never know how that one sneaks through. So, but I was able to write with a lot of people who, like, I guess at the time they needed the little rock thing. So they're like, give me some rock thing. So I just, I it was great. It was pretty cool. I mean, I'd never done that before, like write sort of like on demand. It was never really, I never did that before, but it was pretty cool.
And then, since 2009, I don't know if you're still doing it, you've been touring the world as a member of a band.
Right. Now, in between, there was just to go back for 5 minutes, Hugo, the singer in both Valentine and Open Sky, he looks and sounds a lot like, uncannily like Steve Perry. So he was one of the first guys to start a tribute band. Like, he's like, screw it, I've been criticized my whole life for this, but also praised. He's like, I'm going to do just a Journey tribute band just to play. So I did that with him for a while, which was pretty successful. And then because we did a couple of different, we did some high profile shows for we ended up meeting Steve. We had met Steve Augeri along the way. We toured with him a little bit in the 90s, and he's a New York guy, and he was on Columbia Epic as well. So we kind of knew of him through the years, but then ran into him. He was looking to put together another band. And then the guys in Valentine, because Hugo was in this other band, the Valentine guys became the Steve Augeri Band.
Nice.
And we've been doing that since really, like, we met him in 2009, but we've been really working hard since about 2010, 2011,
So that's still going on?
We're still going. Unbelievable.
So how often are you, how many weeks a year are you traveling?
Oh, it's a good question. Probably about 30, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, wow.
So, but we do what's called fly dates, where we'll fly out, do a couple of shows, come home. So most of the week we're regular people. Then
you leave for a few days and come back.
It's kind of like that's been like the Nashville model forever, which I always wondered why other people didn't do that. Like Nashville, they'll go out, play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or just Friday, Saturday, and then Monday morning they're home. They do it, and they can do that. You can sustain that through the year, which is nice. So the summer's busier, but yeah, we do it all year long.
Wow. If you want to maintain, as normal family life as possible, that's definitely an ideal option.
None of us want. First of all, we don't have no one's offered us a long form tour. So
sure.
And also, none of us, Steve especially, no one wants to do that. It's just doesn't make sense. And so we've been lucky to just do these. Like, the difference is every year, some years are busier, every sort of gig is different, but most of them are great. And Steve Augeri does a lot of shows with Bret Michaels, like the thing called Party Gras, where multi-singer shows. He does a lot of shows with Lou Gramm, a thing called 80s Rock Tour, and the guy John Payne from Asia. So he'll do a lot of those, which are great for him, and he only has to sing 3 or 4 songs, good on his voice. So he keeps, in between our shows, he does a few of those. So
so you had some songs in some movies. I always find that fascinating. So you talk about that a little bit.
That was a fun time too. So back when Valentine, we started out on Columbia, but ended up on a Warner Brothers label called Giant Records. Irving Adolph, famous manager. So they got the soundtrack to Christina Applegate movie called Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh yeah, I remember it well.
Classic 80s, right? The silly 80s.
Yep.
I just watched it recently. Every once in a while I'll watch it. But So they did the soundtrack, and they said, we want to use, one or two of your songs, and then write there was a producer named Bill Ray. He was an 80s guy, and he was in charge of the record. So he's like, come out to California. I'm not sure if we wrote the song with him or it was his song, but we did some of our songs and then recorded a new song.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was fun. We went to, and there was a bunch of younger bands on Giant Records at the time. I remember all of us all of us being in the studio for I don't know, but 4 days and all of us just writing and doing and recording, and all of us in different rooms. It was kind of a fun summer camp little outing. It was so, and then the movie came out, and it was a successful movie, and here we are. So then there's a couple of scenes, where I'm playing. You hear my guitar in the background, and our songs there. It was fun. I wish we did more.
That's a nice little memento for you going forward whenever you want to go back and watch it.
It was, and it comes on once in a while, so it's fun. So
I've probably seen it in parts of it in the past few years.
Right.
I remember that movie very well.
Classic movie.
It's one of those classic stupid 80s movies,
exactly, ridiculous.
Bad Adventures in Babysitting.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun, and then we met. I think we met Christina Applegate somewhere along the way there. It was fun. Good times in the 80s. Our youthful 80s.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you like to see the next stage of your career go?
That's a great question. And listen, I'd like to continue on with Steve. We're playing. It's great because it's like the perfect combination of, we're not kids. It's the perfect amount of being out there and doing what we do, and people appreciate when you're out there. We appreciate it. It's like a love fest. It's all good. I'd love to do that as long as I can, as long as Steve wants to go. It's he's a little older than us, but as long as he'll go was what we'll do. And then I made a solo record last year, just an instrumental, just because I had never done that, and I sort of through COVID started to write these instrumentals for Instagram, and that evolved. So I'm going to put another one of those out. And Instagram has been become a really cool part of my life. There's a great guitar community.
Really?
There's a guy, there's a web or a person called Master of Shred who aggregates all kinds of cool guitar things and everything. And he's been a huge supporter and has sort of put me in this guitar community of, a lot of people you didn't realize knew you from the 80s, but you had no way of knowing until the world of social media happened.
Yeah.
So that's been a fun vehicle. So I'm going to do another solo record. And with Steve Augeri, we do a lot of, not a lot, but we do corporate gigs sometimes, these private sort of smaller corporate gigs. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. So we really like those. So we have the Steve Augeri Band, and we have another acoustic 90s band called Champagne Supernova, which is with a great singer, this guy named PJ Griffith. He was in the show Rock of Ages. He was in the show American Idiot. And so we do some I'm having trouble speaking here. We do corporate style events like 90s acoustic stuff with that. So that's that just started. So we're doing I picture those kind of three things happening over the next couple of years. Those are my musical focus.
So you said you have kids. If they wanted to follow your lead into the music area, would you support that, or would you kind of?
Well, I would, but I would tell them the difference now, and I see a bunch of people who have done this. There are guys who are my age who are still out there. I know touring guys who one's like a chemical engineer, one's a lawyer, who through the time were able to have sort of a side career. And by the way, they're great careers. But so in this modern day, you don't have to be I don't think you need to be all in. I think you can do it wiser. I think I would say to my child, become I know it sounds crazy, but do something that you can do that allows you to do whatever you want to do. Do some career where you don't have to be in an office, whether it's an attorney doing something that you can work at home, whether it's a consultant. So have a career that allows you to make money, which takes the pressure off your creativity. And then you can still go play on the weekends, you need to go on a tour for 2 months. You can still work from remote. That's what I would recommend to young musicians. Have both. And so if it takes 3 years to get a law degree and it takes you 6 years, who cares? In 6 years, you'll have it, and you can still keep your music going. So I would say have parallel paths that for any new person.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, my kid wants to be a musician, what would you recommend? I'd say
Makes a lot of sense.
do two things at once, because you can now. You can work
Yeah.
remotely and make some money, and then which gives you because if you can take the pressure off of making money from music, you'll make better music. If you start getting money, worrying about but by the way, there's nothing wrong with also playing in a cover band. I would say just do multiple things. That's my advice.
I think your expectations of what you want out of it, I think, are important. I mean,
right.
Like you just said, some people probably wouldn't want to do a cover band, but for some people, you're still playing music, you're enjoying yourself,
There's nothing wrong with a cover band,
and you're making money. And what's wrong with that combination?
And also, as you get older, you what's like in your 20s, success is like multi-million records sold, platinum records, Ferraris,
fame, fortune, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever, like, I don't know, all like, Lamborghinis and I don't know, non silly stuff. That's what you picture fame and fortune. For me, success, like, I feel I am successful because I've been able to do what I love in some professional way for a longer time. And holy crap, I'm not sure. Listen, would it have been nice to have those early bands sell millions of records and be touring with them now? Of course.
Yeah, of course.
But the fact that I've still been able to do what I do on some professional level and see the world, and I that's success. You know what I'm saying? So being a musician, on some level, is if you can do it, that's success. I feel that.
Well, the way I look at it also for the music industry is how many bands are there with a bunch of high school kids like you were?
Right.
How many people in those bands across the country, how many people were in those bands are now still in music, making a successful career out of it,
right,
where you are at this point in your life? So to me, that's the ultimate definition of success.
Right. And what's interesting, the guys who are still out there, by the way, we all know each other because we all play the same, we're all running the same circles. Like we're all sort of the same age. So, the pool of people who are still out there, like myself, out there on these fly date worlds or whatever you want to call it. They're all talented guys because they're still, and but everyone's nice. I know it sounds crazy. They're no more like the drama has long gone.
Well, I think now also because there's so many different platforms, maybe in the past it was different, but another band isn't your competition.
Correct. There's really not competition. That's a true thing.
Yeah.
That's a good point. There's like more camaraderie. I think at this point there's more camaraderie than there is. What are you going to steal my spot on my tour?
And maybe I'm wrong. I follow music, but I'm not a music junkie. Never have been. It seems now you see so many collaborations among bands and artists and things like that. It's almost like from a marketing standpoint, it's cross promotion. It's even beneficial. So they don't view these people as, oh, you're my competition. They're just, all right, let's promote each other. Let's make you bigger. Let's make me bigger.
No, but that's true. But I think also I'm going back to the 90s a second. In the 80s, it was very much like, it was like that. It was less brotherly love. It was more like, it was like a battle, more of a battle. I don't know if that was just a mentality, but the 90s, all those bands collaborated. They were they were all intermingled. They played on this record. They toured. I'm like, man, that is so cool. I like that. I'm like, that's, it was a little more loving. I don't know what the word is, but and that I think has come through and carried on into the 2000s. Where with different artists appear on different records, they collaborate, they write, they share a song. I mean, I think that was one of the positive things of the 90s, that little less competitive, more collaborative.
Yeah. So you mentioned some before. So let's go back. You said from the 70s. Give me your favorite artist from the 70s, 80s, 90s from each decade.
70s, like Boston, Foreigner, Steve Miller, Foghat. I mean, Boss Skaggs, tell you the truth. Orleans, like those are the bands that were played in my house. I love, Still the One is probably the song that inspired me to pick up the guitar. That guitar solo in Still the One. To this day, I'm like, man, it's just fantastic. ELO, 70s band. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, Foreigner, Boston, ELO, Foghat, Steve Miller.
80s?
80s, you have your typical, you have your basic the usual top so and so. Obviously, like actually Van Halen. I mean, let's go back to. I don't know if I consider them an '80s band, but they really came out late '70s. But
Sure.
let's put Van Halen in the '80s. So
Yeah, I agree.
Van Halen, top '80s band. AC/DC. I mean, absolutely one of the biggest influential bands on me, and I think most people. I mean, that just anthemic, massive rock. Def Leppard, love Def Leppard. I love Cinderella, '80s bands. Like I love that solid band. You know, so many, all the usual suspects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that style, you know, I always loved, obviously, as much. I loved Ozzy Osbourne because he always had he had the best guitar players. So whether you loved Ozzy or not, you listened to him because some of the best guitar players of the '80s.
Yes.
So that was like the passageway into, you know, guitar stardom, you know what I'm saying? So,
and skipping the next 30 years, talk about present time. Some of the current artists that you really are impressed with.
That's a good one. Today's music, I'm not even sure. You know, I because you know why? I just really I still like it's the things I've been listening to, like are either like what my daughter listens to, young, like, you know, I don't want to even get into this young, you know, stuff, but like I still actually just recently got the new Black Crowes record, which is crazy. Like the new Linkin Park. I thought that I forgot her name, Emily something, but you know what? People, there's lovers and haters. I think it sounds great. So
yeah,
I think that was a smart move because he couldn't go forward with a guy because no matter what they did, people were going to shred. No matter what they did, it was going to be wrong.
Yeah.
So they went way out of the, you know, went late. I think it's great. I like it. I'm a big fan of. I love Paramore. I love the Killers. I think that 2000s era is still like that's like my last sort of, you know, my last era of new music. But I'm trying to think of what else is recently that it's cool. You know, I like. It's really heavy, but I like this band called Flat Black. They're really heavy. The guitar player Jason Hook. I'm a huge fan of him.
Okay.
He was in a band called Five Finger Death Punch, which is like as heavy as any music ever gets.
Right.
But he has a new band that's like heavy but a little more melodic. That's the most new band. But he's not a young guy. But as far as like young youthful kids, I can't even like.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it is. I hear the names. I'm like, what? I don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I was driving my daughter to college, and she just was putting on her playlist, and I was just. All these songs, pretty good song. Never heard of the person. Pretty good song. Never heard of the person. Every song, it's like there's so many people that I just never heard of.
Right. I tell you, a young band a newer band, the Struts are probably like, and Dirty Honey are probably like two bands that are like more recent. They're real young band, but they're real bands. They play real instruments, and those are probably the newer bands I like, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, where can people find you across social media platforms?
Great question. So AdamHollandmusic.com is my website, which will take you everywhere. On Instagram, which is where I post the most. It ends up on Facebook too, but Adam Holland Official. And then on Spotify and everywhere, Adam Holland. And my solo record's called Rapture. And Steve Augeri's record is called 7 Ways Till Sunday, which I did a lot on that record. And the Open Sky stuff and the Valentine stuff is on also. It's all out there on all those streaming platforms. So there's a lot of stuff out there and some 1,000 bazillion YouTube. I don't know. You name it, it's out there. So there's no hiding. All my past is out there. It's it.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed talking to you. Very interesting stuff.
Thank you.
And,
you too, man.
You know, it's been a great career, and I wish you nothing but continued success going forward.
Thank you so much. And again, I'm a grateful guy. Even the fact that someone like yourself wants to even talk to me, it's like that makes me. I appreciate it. So thank you for having me on and letting me chat for a bit.
Yeah. No, thanks for listening, everybody. Be well.
Thanks for listening to Adeptus On-Air. If you like this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. The views and opinions by the podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Adeptus. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice.